This show is sponsored by PowerfulWomenUSA.com. Hey, everybody, I'm Jill Conway, and this is Secrets of Powerful Women, a show dedicated to celebrating and supporting strong and successful women and sharing their stories. I'm hoping that you will be inspired to pursue your dreams, feel empowered, reclaim your voice, and discover your strengths. Okay, my guest today, everybody, is Cathy Hobbs. She is a celebrity interior designer and home stager and CEO of Cathy Hobbs Design Recipes. Boy, you know, you've seen her on so many magazines and shows, including Good Morning America and World News Tonight. She was a finalist on season 6 of HGTV's Design Star, and she worked with Oprah. Like, come on, right? But before all of that, she was a TV news reporter in New York City at Channel 11 with me. And Cathy, it is so good to see you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Jill, it is absolutely wonderful to see you. And hi, everybody.
Hi. So, all right, but first off, let's begin. You're an author now. You have a new book coming out. It's your first book?
It is. And for me, it was on that old bucket list, just something that I always wanted to do. And I never thought I would ever see this moment. But I believe that success leaves clues.
100%.
And what happened was during COVID, I actually reached out to a former coworker to have her on my podcast at the time. You know her, Paula Rizzo.
Oh,
she used to be a producer on the show, and she is a published author. And at the very end, when we were closing out, I said, congratulations. I always wanted to be an author. She said, I'll introduce you to my publisher. And I said, no way. She said, I'd be happy to do it.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, great. And she made the connection. They love the idea, which is part of my brand, Design Recipes, for the last 10 years. I've actually been a nationally syndicated columnist. My whole design style is just really short, succinct tips, do's and don'ts, how-tos, top 10s in the form of recipes that people can just get little nuggets. And so the idea was a design style cookbook. Basically, just like recipes for design. They loved it. And then I just sat on it. And I never did anything with it. And it was coming around to the new year, which is always a time where I write my goals for the next year. I've always been into goal setting. I call it success chunking. Ooh. How am I going to get there? What's my timeline? And just kind of writing it down every year. And what was on the list from the year before was do a book. And I said, wow, why is it still on here? And I reached out to her, to the publisher. I said, are you still interested? She said, we were wondering what happened to you. And so we had just moved. And in my old home, I had a garden. And typically on Mother's Day, I was given the day to plant and do my garden. And that year I said, I'm going to write my book proposal. And my husband said, well, it's your day. And that Mother's Day, I wrote my book proposal and I sent it to them and they bought it. Meaning they said, we want to do this book. And so that was probably about 4 years ago. It was a lot of compiling of what would be the perfect recipes for a book.
Okay.
And what the book essentially outlines is room by room from the outside, from outdoor spaces to children's room, bonus spaces, family rooms. And it's as I show it to you today.
Which I ordered it, by the way, but I didn't get it yet because you had a pre-order.
Well, actually, you're going to get a signed copy today.
Oh, hey there.
You're going to get a signed copy.
I love it.
But it's all these wonderful nuggets. And I wanted it to be almost like a timeless resource for anyone who's looking to design a home. When I went to college, my mom gave me a Betty Crocker cookbook. And it still is in my pantry today, and it said, Happy Cooking, Love Mom. And I want this to be kind of that timeless resource. It's not trendy. It gives you the basic recipes, and all you have to do is add your own spice.
Oh, wow.
Add your own little
let's
spice.
Look. I mean, so when you mean design your recipes, do you mean like if I say I want to do over my master bedroom, you would have... Yeah, you have the...
I give you the basic ingredients.
It's fantastic.
For a successful space. And then you add your own spice. You can add your own color, your own sensibility, but I'm giving you the foundation for what goes into a space. So for example, in a master bedroom, we're talking about bedding, and we'll talk about how to layer the bed in the book from what I say is the bottom to the top, where you start, what kind of mattress to get, the sheeting, how to make up the perfect bed. We'll talk about fabrics and materials. Then I go into the bathroom and I talk about tile and even layout. So it's really, it really is a resource. In fact,
Wait, I love
If you look at the back, one of the main endorsements is Ryan Serhant of $1 Million Listing,
yeah.
and he wrote Cathy's book Home Design Recipes is a master class in design. And I think that that's really kind of, it says it in a nutshell. Amir Karangi, who is the publisher and founder of the Real Deal magazine, called it a textbook in design. I think both are true.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to do
have
a
Barbara
gloss.
Cochran. You have a lot of amazing people.
A lot of Barbara Corcoran, Layla Ali, who actually, I've been friends with the Ali family for 4
As in
decades.
Muhammad
As in
Ali.
Muhammad Ali.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Muhammad Ali's daughter was my college roommate at USC.
Oh my
Isn't that
goodness.
something? And he would stay with us.
Oh my gosh.
And so when I was kind of saying who would be the perfect endorsements, her sister Layla is big in lifestyle, and I called Miriam, my college roommate. I said, Miriam, I'm coming out with a book. Oh, Cathy, that's fantastic. Would you be an endorsement? Yes. And I was wondering, you want Layla, don't you? I said, yes.
Wow.
She's like, she won't just do it because she's my sister Cathy, but type something up and I'll reach out to her. And Layla wrote, she said, absolutely. And she actually wrote her endorsement that I've known the Ali family for 4 decades.
Wow.
And that I'm a real deal.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of my brand too, is I'm authentic, I'm approachable. When we sat down here today, you're like, Cathy, you're the same. I said, I'm the same.
Yeah.
And one of my...
You look the exact same. You don't age
That's
either.
funny.
Yeah.
Thank you, by the way. One of my main mantras is that I wanted to be approachable to people.
Yeah.
And I want design to be understandable and digestible. And let's take it beyond the book, just who I am as a person and the spaces that we design, they're approachable. And I think that's been my success. And my business is mostly staging.
Okay.
We stage real estate for people who want to sell their homes.
$1 million home places,
Not
right?
necessarily.
Okay.
I really want to be approachable and relatable. And so we can interpret whether it's this modest listing or this really regal listing. And I am accessible and can interpret all of those different styles and sell it successfully. And our mantra is approachable and relatable.
Nice.
And so we take on anything.
Right.
We'll take on anything.
All right. So we haven't seen each other in years, and I want to talk about, we did go out to lunch, and I want to talk about, because I feel like that's going to be the title of my book down the road. But
okay.
But when we first met, we were at Channel 11. I don't know if you remember this. It was a subway fire.
That's when we first met?
That's
the very first story?
It was my first story. It was like training.
Okay.
And they're like, you have to go meet, it's a subway fire, you have to go meet Cathy Hobbs out there. I was like, okay.
I may not have been that nice that day because I was very, very focused when I was a reporter, which I was one of the main live reporters.
Yeah, at night.
And they would hold me for breaking news. Breaking news. And that's one of the ways that I said, I should do something with my time. Right. Because I was one of the main reporters. They didn't assign me during the day.
Yeah.
So the time was basically me sitting in the newsroom. I said, maybe I should go back to school and maybe design school. So I would go to FIT in the mornings, and then I would cover fires and shoot 'em ups at night. And it took me 7 years, 11 semesters, and I would go to school in the morning. As you know, when you're an evening news reporter, you can show up at 3 o'clock. You can get up at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. But I would get up at 8 o'clock, and I would go to FIT, and then I was in school basically from 9 in the morning till about 1.
Wow.
All the teachers knew me. It got to the end where I had no more classes to take. I actually had to take basketball just because I had to fill out a full semester. And then it ended with a degree. And I think, one of my mottos in life, and I tell this to my daughter, which is hard work pays off in the future. Laziness pays off right now.
Ooh.
And
that's a quote.
It's my philosophy in life. I wouldn't have what I have now as far as an interior design business if I hadn't put in all the work.
Right.
And I tell people, if you have a dream or a goal, you have to put in the work. It doesn't happen overnight. maybe you'll hit some sort of lottery. But most people, even those people who were those superstar singers, they started out in small clubs or they started out as backup singers.
Sure.
They all started somewhere. They had the talent, but they put in the work.
Right. Yeah. But so you've had 2 incredibly successful careers, right? So how did you transition? So I do want to talk about that. What did you always want to do? Did you always want to be a reporter? And so take me back to Cathy as a young gal.
Little Cathy with pigtails.
Yeah. What'd she want to do?
Little pigtails and buck teeth, by the way.
Me too.
Really. So the fact that I actually made it on TV is interesting as well. But in any event, grew up in what's now called the DMV, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, suburb of Baltimore, called Columbia, Maryland. Then I went to high school in Detroit, in a suburb of Detroit. My father was transferred to a company that had their world headquarters in Detroit, known as the D, which is interesting. But I have a fond place in my heart for Detroit.
Nice.
So then I went to the University of Southern California, and I majored in finance and marketing because my whole family, my mom, CPA, and my dad, business, and that seemed like the right path. Worked for basically a stock brokerage. I'm dating myself, Drexel Burnham Lambert, which ended up going out of business. And then I was in the 11th hour, and I said, wow, TV news reporting looks kind of interesting. Literally, went and applied and got accepted to the journalism department. And during the first week, we were doing obits. And the teacher said that our first job would be in the basement of a newspaper in the obituary section. And I said, but wow, I thought I wanted to be a reporter. It was very difficult for me. He pulled me out in the hallway at the end of the first week and said, I've been in television for 20 years, and I want to tell you, you'll never make it.
Why?
Because he didn't think I had what it took to be a journalist. I dropped the class the next day.
Oh my goodness.
And I was so deflated. I said, maybe it's not for me. And then who I am then and now, I said, this isn't going to be my journey. And I applied. I saw a little ad for the school newspaper, and they only gave it to journalism students, but this was during a time when you had to go and stand in an admissions line. It wasn't computerized and it wasn't instant. So they saw that I was still listed as enrolled. So I got the job writing for the Daily Trojan, which is the school newspaper at USC, and it just blew up. I was given a column. I wrote about topics that everyone cared about. And then they had a job fair on campus, and it was for a minority organization that was not African American. And I said, well, there'll be news directors there. I'm sure they're not going to kick me out. So I went, and everyone was standing in line for KNBC and KABC.
Wow.
And there was a guy who no one was standing in line for, and he was the news director at the NBC affiliate in Bakersfield. And I went and I talked to him. And he offered me a job. So I was a senior at USC, and he offered me my very first job. I was a weekend reporter on an NBC station in Bakersfield while a student. And from there, I got hired in Columbia, South Carolina. I got hired in Nashville, DC, working for the NBC O&O at 25. It was just, this rocket trajectory. And then I was hired in New York City, the #1 market, at the age of 28. And it started by going over and meeting that news director. So I was a news reporter for almost 20 years. And what happened along the way was I replaced, in 3 different instances, someone who was fired.
Oh, that's not good.
I was the replacement.
Yeah, that's tough.
And I watched what happened to them. And some of them were really lost. They didn't know, what's the next step? What other skills do I have? They hadn't been trained in anything. And it was really, do I go to this really small market? What do I do? I just got let go at, the ABC station, and the, NBC station doesn't want me, that type of thing. And there was a job that most reporters do that would have been easy for me if I wanted to have a plan B backup. It just didn't appeal to me, and that was PR. It just, it for some people, it's a really great, I didn't think I could do it. I didn't think it was something that I would particularly be good at or enjoy. So I said, if this ever happens to you, if they ever come to your desk, I'm going to be locked and loaded. Right. I'm going to have a backup plan. And as you know, you can win an Emmy on Friday night and they could not renew your contract on Monday morning.
Right.
So I just said, this is my backup plan. Don't know what I'm going to do with it. It's a hobby for now. Who knows? But I said, if they ever come for me, I'm going to be ready for them. And it took me, 7 years, and thank God I was able to finish. And then it was around the time that the Williamsburg waterfront was being rezoned, and I was getting married. And I became friendly with the real estate agent who was marketing the new development. And they knew that I was in school, and they offered me my first model apartment. Wow. So this was like 20 years ago. They said, we'd love for you to do the model. And I had taken a little home staging class, and I had my pricing all ready, and they had a price in mind too, which was free.
And your price was a little bit more than that.
It was a little bit more than that. It was the one and only time I ever did a staging for free. But I loved it.
Yeah.
I fell in love with real estate, and I fell in love with working with a blank canvas, which is really what staging is. So I think that for many people, find your passion, and your passion may not be someone else's passion. For some people, it's the whole, I went to interior design school, and it wasn't my passion doing the residential design part of it. I really love staging. So I started my staging business 20 years ago. Wow. Actually, in 2004, I ran it for many years in the back of a live truck.
Wow.
I would essentially stage in the morning, and then I would go to the station. And then after my live shots, I would show up at a new development at midnight. And I had one worker at the time. And that person would work a full-time job, get home, and then I'd say, it's time for us to go stage this apartment at night. And they would hang the mirrors and the pictures until they finally put down their size 12 Birkenstock and said, baby, you got to get somebody else. Oh. It was my husband.
They're always the ones
I
drag,
started
right?
with, it was just me and my husband staging at midnight until he said, you got to get someone else. And that's when I hired my first assistant.
Wow.
And just started to be able to grow. One of the things that you can never scale ever if you don't have an assistant of some sort.
Okay.
And I've talked to a lot of real estate agents. And I said, how did you grow your team? How did you grow your business? And they said, even when I didn't have money, I hired an assistant. And I said, wow. And they said, I realized I could never scale. Yeah. So we're talking about passion and transitioning, and I just shared that. But we're also talking about, to me, the secret of a successful business is also being able to scale it. And you can never scale by yourself.
You need a team.
You need a team, and you need systems in place. So one of the things that we've invested in are systems. I'm a traction company. Are you familiar with Traction and Gino Wickman and an EOS company? It's about assigning tasks to people, and they call them rocks. Okay. And then people then set their own milestones. So within the team that you're building, those people have their own responsibilities, and they set a timeline for themselves. And it's about growing a system of accountability, but it's really a key to scaling.
And it's really, I would think, fulfilling to them as well, which is what you have to do. Keep your workers engaged, right? And inspired. Inspired
and also committed. And, they say that you really need, as an entrepreneur, to work on your business and not just in your business. One of the transformational points for me, and I'm just sharing, was I was gifted a coupon to a Tony Robbins seminar.
Oh, I love him. Yeah.
And that may sound interesting. Well, what did you learn there?
This was at what point was this?
This was about 5 years ago. This was at a point where I had to decide where's the next step for me. So unfortunately, my dad, who I mentioned, died at a milestone birthday. Let's just say it was kind of on the low but big number.
Yeah.
And for him, it was the end. And for me, I wanted it to be my beginning when I turned that age. So I said, why not? And I did what's called his session, Unleash the Power Within. You walk on fire at 1 a.m.
Yes.
And then I did 5-day business mastery. And what it said to me is, what are my limiting beliefs? What's holding me back to scale? And I decided to make a really big leap, which was to build my own ground up construction, 20,000 square foot warehouse and home staging design center.
Wow.
So that's my next big move.
And we're going to talk about it. We'll be back with Cathy Hobbs after the commercial break. You're listening to Secrets of Powerful Women. Join our community. Head to powerfulwomenusa.com for more information and follow us Instagram, Facebook, Apple, Amazon Music, Spotify, and YouTube. We'll be back. And we're going to talk about Oprah too. Okay. Bye-bye. Welcome back. You're listening to Secrets of Powerful Women. Cathy Hobbs is here. Now, Cathy is a celebrity interior designer and home stager and CEO of Cathy Hobbs Design Recipes. She has a new book called Home Design Recipes. And Cathy, that's releasing this week, right?
It's releasing tomorrow.
Oh my goodness.
So when you go to sleep tonight, you'll wake up. It's like, Christmas come early. Christmas come early, you'll wake up to my book.
Oh my goodness. So you worked very hard on that book.
Yes.
And we were just talking about your warehouse. And this is a state-of-the-art warehouse. I had never heard of the things that you talk about. So talk about what this warehouse is and, all about it. Go ahead.
So I was just mentioning that as part of my scaling vision, just kind of where do we go from here? I wanted to have a leave behind, a legacy. So to me, there's no better leave behind than real estate. So it's called Highland Passive House. It is the first multi-use passive warehouse in North America. I'll tell you how I stumbled onto that.
Well, tell us what passive is.
Passive is basically the energy efficiency of the highest level. It's going to be certified through the PHI, the Passive House Institute in Stuttgart, Germany. It's passive, net zero, and carbon neutral. When you see those historical buildings and there's a cornerstone, mine's going to say Hobbs.
Oh, wow.
Literally.
I love it.
So it really is a legacy project for me. And it's something that, I think it's going to be, I hope that my daughter, whether she wants to be in business or not, will keep it and know and nurture it. I took her to a lot of the meetings where I was approved for zoning and things like that. But I want to talk about how I kind of stumbled into it. So it's about taking a risk. And I believe in risk taking. And I also believe in seed planting. And so if you plant a seed and watch it grow, that's where you see the fertilization. And what we fertilize is what grows, whether it's our relationships, our business, what we nurture. And what we ignore tends to not grow, right? So I decided that I would just want to maybe build a warehouse. And I had interviewed an architect who was on a show that I did after I was on Channel 11. I was given my own show. And then after that, I was on Design Star Season 6, which I know you'll get to in a moment. And I interviewed this architect, and he specialized in passive. The company is Ingwe Architecture. The owner is Michael Ingwe. And I said, what do you think about passive? He said, well, you could do it. I mostly build single-family homes or retrofit townhouses, but you could. And I said, I'd really love to do something energy efficient. And the passive really, really, really resonates with me. And I'm also married to a German. And in Germany, energy efficiency and renewable energy is very, very
they're very advanced over there in all fields.
So that was just very interesting to me. He said, well, there's a company that I know but they're out of Maine, and they specialize in prefabricated passive panels, or SIPs. I said, well, that is interesting. He said, let's reach out to them. He did, and the gentleman said, well, I actually have a building that I was going to build for myself, a warehouse that's a showroom attached to a warehouse, and I'm not going to build it now. It's actually for sale. Isn't that interesting? The architect. I said, interesting. That's my building. I said, tell him that I'm flying to Maine. The next day, I flew to Maine. And for all of you Scandal fans out there, Olivia Pope got off the plane that day.
Wow.
White coat, everything. And he sold it to me. So I ended up buying his building that he was going to use as his manufacturing facility. And once erected, it would have been the first multi-use passive warehouse in North America. So that's how I became the owner of it. We got a lot of help from the state. But, little old me, I'm not a big builder or developer, but you know what? We received over $1 million from NYSERDA as part of their carbon neutral program. I wrote the grant myself. It was 100 pages. I mean, I had so many 4 a.m. nights, and I just pressed the button. And what I did was I took a chance, and in sports, it's what they call a Hail Mary. And I took a deep breath, and I took a shot from the back of the court, and it went in. But it went in. Well, and that's how I got the grant money that I needed in order to show the bank that I was a good risk. And they gave me the money to build it's going to be a home staging and design center, the first of its kind, in the Hudson Valley. And I think potentially the country, we're going to be basically focused on short-term rentals and home staging. And I don't know of any home staging and design center that just caters to vacation homes, short-term rentals, and home staging. So it's very, very, very exciting. But again, it's because I took a risk. This
is like the Northeast version of Magnolia. I feel like it's just starting to rise. Yeah, I mean,
so you have to ask yourself. So for someone who's listening to this, and they've always said, "Well, listening to Cathy, it sounds like maybe she took risks that I don't feel comfortable taking."
Well, because you always hear that voice. Maybe we all do. That says, it's not going to work out. Why should I even try?" Did you hear that? Did you hear that little?
What I heard was, what do I have to lose? And in the last final days of who I am as a person on earth, I never want to look back and say, I should have tried. And that's really what happened, even in reporting. People told me, hey, you'll never be a reporter.
Right.
We're going to try it.
So crazy.
And then I got a 20-year career in reporting. And I remember those early news directors, I said, well, what do you need to be a reporter? You need a resume tape. I'll be right back. I'll figure out a way to get a tape. Right. And even with the loan that I needed for this venture, and that if you are a business owner, it's very difficult to expand at all without financing. And what I learned the hard way is decisions are made a lot of times by 5 people in a room. And if you have this person and this person and this person, it's like getting admitted to an elite private school. There's an admissions board and they score. So in a commercial loan situation, there's a room of people who score the risk of the loan. And you also have to show strength and business experience. You also have to have skin in the game and bring equity, but you also have to show them that it is something that they want to invest in. Sure. That and a lot of banks want to grow a small business. So I think that having a good story to tell, and I don't mean manufacturing a story, I mean being honest and true. Every single time that I, met with someone, I just told them my story. And they wanted to be a part of it. They wanted to be a part of it.
Well, let's go then, using that as a segue to how you got on HGTV on the Design Star. I mean, that was huge. I mean, was that you? Where were you in your interior design or home staging career?
You want to know how I came up with the concept? Because you're going to relate to this. Okay. So I wanted to rebrand myself. I wanted to reinvent myself. Does that resonate with anyone at home? Of course.
We all do. I think we all do. After a certain age and certain milestones, yeah, why not?
And how do you get there? How can I be believable? And how can I be credible? So for me, I was a reporter. everyone knew me as that. I was very recognizable. And when I first tried to get those initial design jobs, I had people say, well, wait a minute, aren't you a reporter? And then I said, well, I went to design school. Okay. But it wasn't until I went on Design Star that people actually started believing it. And where I came up with the concept is I'm on a red carpet. And I am, have the way it works is you're on a red carpet and all the reporters are lined up with all of their microphones and their tripods and their cameramen. And then a PR person goes down the red carpet and introduces you to who's coming up next or lets you know who's coming up next. And so we're all standing there and someone's like, so-and-so's up next. We're like, who? She was on season 1 of Survivor. She was on season 2 of Top Chef. And I started to realize that was a good way to connect 2 dots.
Yes.
When I was growing up, if you wanted to be on some of these morning shows, if you won a beauty pageant, you were a host on.
Yeah, you had a voice.
You were a host on some of these national shows, almost like the next day. These days, reality TV is a credibility builder that's almost instantaneous. So I said, as I said before, I'll be right back. Let me get on a reality show if that's how you do it. So I auditioned for Design Star.
One of 7,000 people.
They held auditions in 6 or 7 cities for season 6. It was basically the design competition show of its time. And I auditioned in New York. They held them across the country. And the way it worked is you went to a huge room. There were maybe 1,000 people there that day. And then you met with someone and you told your story. And I said I was a TV news reporter. I bought my game that day. So I was a TV news reporter in New York, turned designer. And they said, because they also want to spin a story when they cast people. They said, we want you for the callback. And I would go to every audition and I would just bring it. And so that was me chunking, right? Just laying down a seeds for success. Every single audition, I just brought it. And I just concentrated on that.
So what do you mean? I'm going to stop you. What do you mean by brought it? For someone's listening, who's like, how do I bring it?
What I call an A game. Focus.
Confidence.
Focus, confidence. But they say this in acting. Don't concentrate on winning the role. Just concentrate on getting the callback. I heard that in acting. Because if you concentrate on the role, then that's not what they want that day.
Right.
So I would just concentrate just on getting the next callback. That's all I did. And I didn't know where it would lead, but it was just, okay, all right, let's just take on this little bite-sized piece. It's what I talk about when I talk about seed planting.
Right.
So I was
something digestible, something you can.
I just want to concentrate on the audition. Yeah. And what ended up happening is that I just kept getting callback. And then there was one time when they wanted you to do a tape of yourself and your experience. I had that covered. I mean, my tape was in the middle of Times Square, and I was standing in front of a police precinct. For 20 years, this was me. Then I went to FIT. That was easy for me. What was not easy for me is the very, very, very last audition, which was at the headquarters for CBS in New York City. And it was also, at the time, the Food Network was taping there. It was all the executives from CBS and the executives from HGTV for the show. And they had you put materials together into a room. They had you meet with the executives, and then they had you take a detailed questionnaire. And the questionnaire was asking you if you knew how to use power tools, if you know how to use a power washer, if you know how to use a drill. And I said, no. And I was honest. And my husband said, maybe you should have said yes. And I was cast the next day.
Wow.
And I was cast the next day as the tough as nails, former news reporter turned designer who couldn't use power tools. They had the story that they wanted.
Right.
They had the story that they wanted.
Let's talk about quick. I know we have about a little over 7 minutes, but when I met you when we had lunch years ago, after I don't know if I'd left news yet. I was out here in Long Island, but and you were just leaving. I feel like you just I met you. I went to one of your openings or something. I can't think of
You
the
maybe went
designers.
to an event,
Yes.
and I remember you
Yeah.
were transitioning too
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah.
You were still working as a reporter, but you were thinking about real estate.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why you wanted to meet with me to talk about that transition for yourself.
Right. And you said, well, what's your plan B, Jill? And I
I
remember
say that?
you
'Cause
did.
that sounds like something I
It
would
did. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And I was like, what do you mean? And you're like, what do you mean? What's your plan B? You got to come up with a plan B. And I just remember like sitting there like, I never occurred to me. I think it was before real estate because
real
I was
estate
like,
wasn't your plan B? Oh, it was before real estate.
I was, because I was like, what do you mean? I'll be on news forever. What do you mean? And you're like, no, wake up. Like, why would you want to, first of all, right? Like, that's news is a grind. I mean, it is tough. And I remember you said that to me and I was like, And you're like, everybody has to have a plan B. And I think that's so true. Like, you don't have to stay in the same job in the same career forever.
You
right?
don't, but don't ignore your history and your story.
Use it.
I would not be where I am today if I wasn't a TV news reporter. It's what makes me interesting.
Yeah. Well, and you use it in all your moving forward.
I use it in if you were, let's say, a marketing executive, or let's say you were a dog groomer. The fact that you're a dog groomer, you now want to come out with an organic pet line.
Right.
That's what makes that story strong.
Right.
So all of your past history, decide that's what they call a USP, your unique selling proposition. You're you. No one else can be you.
Right.
So take what makes you and run with it.
Oh, so good. Kathy, I have so many nuggets. I feel like I
call
need to
them,
write down.
Cathy-isms.
Yes. Yes. So, all right. So cannot let you go without talking about Oprah. You toured with Oprah.
Yes, I did. I did two different campaigns.
I mean, that's a pinch yourself moment, right?
It is, and it comes from tenacity. So I have a very, very hardworking publicist. We're going to give a shout out to Tiona Ostroff, who is the one who has been with me since Design Star and got me Oprah.
Wow.
And she just kept pitching. I have this great designer who I think would make a good article for the magazine.
Mm-hmm. And you've been in many, many magazines.
Just do an article in the magazine or write a tip or two. It was just a basic pitch.
Right.
And at the time, Oprah was planning to do an 8-woman tour called the Life You Want Tour, in which she had all these experts, Deepak Chopra and Alanya Van Sant and Rob Bell, and they were basically needing experts to tour. And they said, well, what about this gal who keeps bugging us about writing a little article? And they came back and said, would she be interested in being on an 8-woman tour with Oprah? Yeah. And we're like, yeah.
No.
So it turned out to be this whole amazing experience in my life journey. It was 8 cities between September and Thanksgiving. And it was an unforgettable experience that I will hold with me forever.
Wow. Well, what did you learn from it? I mean, what'd you walk away from that experience? What I walked
away from it was even seeing her and how she related to people and how people gravitated to her. I also learned about, for me, I was in the design tent in which IKEA was the main sponsor. And I had a real audience, some people who would just sit and just listen to me because I was relating to them real life design stories. But I also learned always have a second act because you never know where it can lead.
Right.
You never can know. And the one thing I say to people, if you are sitting here saying, I can't, the only way that you won't get to where you're going is if you turn around. And I always say, I hope to live a long, long, long life. I want to be Martha Stewart hanging out with Snoop Dogg, the Snoop Dogg of the day.
Me too.
But I'm just going to run out of time one day, Jill.
We all are.
I still have goals that I write down every year. I've been keeping goals since I was 18. I look back at them, I tweak them. Well, what's going to happen is that at the end, I'm just going to run out of time.
Right.
And maybe I'll leave some sort of, blueprint for my daughter to follow. But I hope to be working for a very, very, very long time, not because I need to, but because I want to. And I work an awful lot on my business, but because I care about it, and I also spend time with my family. I'm not saying that I don't sacrifice those things, but I don't think any great entrepreneur can be honestly say that they got to where they did by not working hard.
Right. Well, how do you keep that balance then? How do you keep the balance? But you have a daughter, and obviously you're married too for a long time. Yeah.
You also have to have a supportive spouse. I think it's very difficult to not have a supportive tribe around you. You have to have a supportive tribe. You have to have a supportive spouse. And you have to take time to do some of those things that are me moments. You talked during the break about meditation. I don't do that as much as I should, but when I do, it's just quiet time, it feels really, really good.
Yeah.
And it's a 10-minute day, 10-minute a day empowerment. I listen to a lot of books on tape. I listen to a lot of people who are successful leaders. I believe, as I've mentioned before, that success leaves clues. And if my mom has a saying, she said, if not now, when? If not me, then who?
Right. I love that. I love that. All right. Well, we have about a minute left. What advice would you give to your younger self? I stumped Cathy, which is
because I was about to say what took you so long, but I think that everything for me came in an order that I needed it to happen in. I needed to establish myself and my credibility in a career in order to be able to transition into a new one. I had goals from the very beginning, and I'd say, keep on keeping on, Cathy. You're doing all right.
Oh, I love it. I love it. A big, big thank you to Cathy Hobbs for coming on the show. Head to her website, cathyhobbs.com. And guys, grab her new book. It's called Home Design Recipes. You can buy it on Amazon too. And if you need an interior designer or a home stager, she is the one to call. You have been listening to Secrets of Powerful Women. Head to powerfulwomenusa.com. Get on the newsletter. I'm Jill Conway, and thank you for listening to the show, celebrating and empowering women. I hope you are inspired to pursue your goals, believe in yourself, be courageous. I'm here to remind you that your voice matters and that your story has power. We are stronger together, and together we are unstoppable. Hope you join me next time.